Hello, advanced math. Last lesson on adding with negatives. We're going to put fractions and decimals in the mix today. So no new strategies, just kind of using the same strategies with different kinds of numbers. So go ahead and write this as the next page in your math notebook and give me lots of concentration when you're done. Okay, so real fast, quick review. The adding integers strategies we learned two. The first one was like symbols or counters. We would draw a certain number of symbols, +5, -2, make a 0 out of some of them, and then add what was left and get 3. And then the other strategy we used was the start, move, end on the number line strategy, where I would say I'm going to start at -2, and then I'm going to move 5 in the positive direction. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and wherever I end was it. So that's the two strategies we learned, and they both work for fractions and decimals too. And I'm going to show you how I think through these. So with decimals, I prefer the number line strategy. And personally, and with fractions, I prefer the symbols strategy, and I'll show you why. Either can work with either one. These are just my preferences. So if I wanted to add these, we're going to start with both negative examples. So -4 3/10 plus -5 8/10. If it were me, I would use the number line strategy with the decimals, because I think it's a little easier. So these are both negatives, so I'm going to leave myself lots of negative space here. So I'm going to do the start, move, end strategy here. And I'm going to start at -5 8/10, and I'm going to move 4 3/10 in the negative direction. So what I like to do is move the whole number first. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, because that's pretty easy. That'd be -6 8/10, -7 8/10, -8 8/10. -9 8/10, and then do the 3/10. So I'm going to move another 3/10. So I'll do 1, that'd be -9 9/10. Another one, that'd be -10, and another one would be -10 1/10. So I would end at -10 1/10. I think that's easier. The symbols get really tough with the decimals, because like, how do I draw? There's -4, but how do I do -3/10 in symbols? Sometimes I'll do it and I'll just write it like that, and over here I'll do another that and kind of try to deal with it. But I like the number line strategy with the decimals. With fractions, let me write that a little neater for you. So with fractions, before I can add these anyway, I need a common denominator. So like I'm going to do, this is -10 12ths, excuse me, and this is -9 12ths. And what I like, the symbols kind of work here for me, because like I know my answer is going to be 12ths if I'm adding 12ths and 12ths. And then it's really easy for me to do, then I'm really just adding integers, because when I do the numerators, I'm adding these two numbers, and those are just integers. They're not really fractions anymore. I'm just thinking about how to add -10 plus -9, which symbols is fine. And I know I'm going to have -19 12ths. So with fractions, I tend to use that strategy. All right, let me skip over to one positive, one negative. These are tougher, particularly here. Here they're not really tougher. Decimals are a little tougher because you got to cross 0 sometimes. And so let me show you that. So I'm going to use the number line strategy here. Just go ahead and make a big number line for me as well. I got kind of squeezed last time. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so I'm starting at 3 9/10. and I'm going to go 4 8/10 in the negative direction. So 1 is going to put me there. 2 is going to put me there. 3 is going to put me there. And now this one gets a little weird, because if I don't think, I'm just like, oh yeah, 9/10, 9/10, 9/10, 9/10. So when I do my next one, I'd be like, oh, okay, that's a negative 9/10, but it isn't. If you pay close attention, when I do my fourth move, I'm not at a 9/10 anymore, because I had to cross 0. And so it'd be like, to do all mine, it'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10/10 would only put me at negative 1/10. If I drew all the tenths, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, I'd move 10/10 to move 1. So I'd end up at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and my 10/10 would put me at negative 1/10, not at negative 9/10. So that's the only thing that's tricky. When you cross 0, that's going to happen. So now I've done my 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've just got to go my other 8/10. And I'm going to end up at negative 9/10. So I like the number line strategy a lot with the decimals. Harder than the symbols to me. There's ways to do it with the symbols, and you guys are good at figuring out some tricks to do this kind of stuff. That's totally fine. I just want to show you how our strategies apply. With these, I'm more okay with the symbols, because I end up just dealing with the numerators, which are just whole numbers, and it's pretty easy. So I need a common denominator, probably 20. Let's see, times 5, so times 5. So negative 35/20 plus times 4 plus 8/20. And again, the reason the symbols strategy works for me here is now I'm not really dealing with the denominators anymore. I know my denominator is going to be 20. So I just have to deal with the numerators here. So negative 35 plus the 8, I would end up making 8 sets of 0. And so I would lose 8 of these negatives, and so I would have negative 27/20, I believe. All right, so that's how it works. Open your math notebook. Let's do some together. So let's start with the both negative. I think that's a little bit easier situation here because you don't have to cross 0. All right, so let's... I like the number line for decimals, and I like the symbols for fractions. I'm not going to say you have to do it that way, but that's how I'm going to show you here. All right, so start, move, end. These are both negative, so I'm just going to only leave myself negative space here. And I'm going to start at negative 6 9/10, and I'm going to move 1. Oh, I'm sorry, other way around. Almost messed that up. I'm going to start at negative 1 2/10, and I'm going to make 6 moves in the negative direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you want to keep track of what those would be, that'd be 2 2/10, 3 2/10, 4 2/10, 5 2/10, 6 2/10, 7 2/10, and then I've got to move the decimal part, the negative 9/10. And let's see, that's going to take me to negative 8 1/10. All right, do a fraction example, both negative. So negative 4/3 plus negative 2/6. Got to have my common denominator. I think I can do 6. So let's make that negative 8/6 plus negative 2/6. And I kind of use the symbols here because, again, I already know my denominator. So I only have to deal with the numerators. I only have to do the -8 and the -2. And symbols is a good strategy for that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And -2 makes -10, 6. All right. Let's do some 1 positive and 1 negative examples. Again, I think those are tougher on the decimals, not necessarily tougher on the fractions, just because of the crossing 0 issue. Should work fine. Okay. So here we go. So I'm going to start at 5 9/10. Remember, start, move, end. And I'm going to make my 6 and 1/10 move in the negative direction. So I'm going to do my 6 first. So that's going to take me to 4 9/10, 1, 3 9/10, 2 9/10. I'm going to run out of space. 1 9/10, 9/10. How many have I done? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now this is where I get weird, because now I've got to cross 0. So when I do my 6th one, just don't go to sleep and assume that means I'm at -9/10, because I'm not. When you go from -9/10, it's going to take me 9/10 to get to 0 and 1 more tenth to make a hole. I've got to make my 6th move. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9/10 gets me to 0, and 1 more tenth. I'm only at -1/10, not -9/10. And then I do my other 1/10. And so I'll end up at -2/10. And that's it. So just be careful when you cross 0. That's the place to watch out for if you want to highlight it or circle it or something. That's the only thing that really makes these particularly tough, is that you've got to cross over 0. All right, last one. 3/4 plus -1/6. Going to need a common denominator to add these. I think 12 looks good. So times 3 times 3 times 2 times 2. And so I'm going to have 9/12 plus -2/12. And I know my answer is going to be 12ths. So the symbol strategy is a breeze, because I'm just really adding 9 plus -2 at this point. So I can use my symbols and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 plus -2. Those make 0 plus 7. And I'm going to have 7/12, positive 7/12. 9/12 plus -2/12 is positive 7/12. So as you can see, no new strategies, nothing really new to do with fractions and decimals. They're just harder. You just have to do more steps, and you just got to be more careful, frankly. Again, I've taught you how to do this with the number line strategy here and the symbol strategy here. There's no reason you can't do this with a number line. You can make 9/12 on your number line and move 2/12 in the negative direction. That works. And you can do these with symbols too if you're real careful. It's just more difficult to do. So I showed you the strategies I prefer that I think really show you why certain things happen. But if you know those strategies or any other strategies you figure it out on your own, that is totally fine. So possibly a tough lesson. So if you need to go back and watch some of these examples again, please do. I want you to have a really good feel for this when you get to class tomorrow and we do the you do together and the you do alone. So with that in mind, go back if you need to. If not, once you've got these written down and you feel like you've got a good command of it, you're all set. Can't wait to see you in the morning.